Well, I've been living for about 10 years overseas as an expat. And during the 10 years, I've had a lot of friends and family and students visit me and ask me questions about what it's like. And there's 6 common questions that I'm almost always asked. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go through these questions and together answer them. So what's the first one? What is an expat and why be one? What are the challenges of being an expat? What are the challenges of life and work overseas? What skills are needed to do it? What's the expat lifestyle like? Who's best suited to live and work overseas? How can I prepare? So what we're going to talk about today are the expats who are more like in the people in my book. As I mentioned, men and women from all over the world, different ages, different nationalities, living in a foreign country and immersed in the culture. So why live and work overseas? Why do you guys think somebody would want to move to a foreign country, live there long term, the language, the culture? What are some reasons? Yes?
I think because they see opportunity overseas, whether that's in business or for like a better lifestyle or more happiness overseas.
Okay. Anybody else?
It can also be like a really good learning experience about yourself and kind of who you are. And so if you can do that while you're working and doing what you love, that can be great.
Great, excellent. That's what I love to hear. That's a really important part of it. We're going to talk about that today. So one reason, touching a little bit on what you said, is that developing countries and foreign countries are the frontier. Here in Argentina, we're literally at the edge of the world, the bottom of the world. And then the spirit that existed in the United States 200 years ago, the frontier spirit, going west, exists very much in many parts of the world today, developing countries, especially like Argentina. And that is certainly a big reason why a lot of people go overseas, because of the opportunities and because of this spirit of the undiscovered frontier, the wild, wild west. Another reason is to be a big fish in a small pond. Stand out, be able to compete much easier than back home in certain industries and certain niches. Jerome Constant at Anna Bistro, we met the other night, he's told me many times he never would have opened a French bakery in France. No sense. But here he's got the only one in Mendoza. He's a huge fish in a practically empty pond. And the fish that we are in this small pond, typically if we come from countries like the United States or from places like Europe, we're fish made out of dollars or euros, right? So our money goes a lot further than it would back home. We're able to start our businesses with much less initial capital and with much less risk. And finally, going to your personal point, how many of you have seen the movie The Matrix? So at least half of you are familiar with it. And in The Matrix, how many of you would have taken the red pill? The red used to go down the rabbit hole to unplug from the Matrix. How do you guys think you would do that? Or as you were watching the movie, you thought you'd probably take the red pill? All right, well, congratulations, because to some extent you already have taken the red pill. Because you're here in Argentina, and you're having a multicultural experience that's probably causing you to think about your premises, your beliefs, your reality from back home. And for me, this is one of the most valuable aspects, one of the most important reasons to live and work overseas. Because it gives you a real, true opportunity to take the red pill, to go down the rabbit hole, to unplug from your native culture, to no longer be a conformist, to identify the ways that you are conforming back home, the way that you're acting without really thinking about your beliefs and your premises. Those may be simply programmed from culture. By moving to a foreign country, helps you it's a tool to identify those premises, those beliefs that conform me, and change it if you want to. So that for me is a really important part of the expat experience. Here's some personal lessons that I've learned thanks to Argentina. Part of the justification for me being here, part of the reason I think it's so important to live and work overseas, and again harkening back to the Matrix, the unplugging experience that life and work overseas gives you. So poor folks got poor ways. This is something I've learned here. My father grew up dirt poor in Oklahoma. He would always say this. He'd always say, poor folks got poor ways. And I never really understood it until I came here to Argentina. And I saw that poor people add water to their dishwashing detergent. Nobody has a dishwasher here. Most people run out of money by the end of the month. and so they have to line up in a huge line at the first of the month at the bank to collect their money that's been deposited into their accounts. They ride around without helmets on their motorcycles. They disregard most safety practices we have back home because they simply don't have the money to be safe. They'd much rather pay a fine to a police officer who's corrupt, say a bribe of 50 or 100 pesos for not wearing a helmet on their motorcycle. They go to Walmart and pay 700 or 800 pesos for the helmet, which they can't afford. Also, if a family of 6 or 7 wants to go have an asado in the park, they'll all cram into a tiny little Renault 12 car. It's probably from like 1973, and they'll drive to the park. Far more people than should safely be in that car, but they don't have the money to do it any other way. So poor folks got poor ways. That's something I learned and really understood and took to heart here in Argentina. La sangre nunca llega al río. This literally means in English that the blood never arrives at the river. And what that's saying is that things never turn out to be as bad as you think they will. I think in the United States we often get really stressed out and anxious and angry about politics, Obamacare, terrorist attacks, yellow alerts, red alerts, the sky is falling. In Argentina, you learn to just relax, not worry about the things you can't control. Shit is definitely going to happen, so there's no sense in worrying about it now. Best to calm down and just take life easy, be less anxious. And it took years to get that anxiousness, that anxiety out of my system living here in Argentina. But I've finally been able to do it, and that's been one of the great personal lessons living here, working overseas in Argentina. Now you get to keep it lo bailado. This one you guys are going to like. You all went out last night. What it means is no one can take away from you that which you have danced. So if you guys went out last night and had a great time, and something happens to you today, nobody can ever take that away from you. The idea is live for today. Don't sacrifice for tomorrow. Enjoy the moment. I learned this thanks to Argentina. I also learned this thanks to being at Ground Zero on September 11th. So kind of my motto for my life is to prepare rather than plan. To prepare yourself for any eventuality. Don't plan. And enjoy life. Live in the moment. Don't sacrifice today for tomorrow. Nadie te quita lo bailado. Nobody can ever take away from you that which you've danced, that which you've enjoyed, what you guys did last night at Patio. That's what it's all about. And the greatest wealth is to live content with little. In Argentina, we have very simple lives here. People are not wealthy, not rich. They don't have a lot of possessions. Purchasing power parity is far lower. So you learn here to live a simple life, an easy life, and focus on personal relationships. So in the United States, there's a book called Traffic. Have you read Traffic by Tom Vanderbilt? A couple of you have. Good. So there's an interesting statistic in traffic. In the United States, at 1 p.m. on Saturday, there's more traffic on the roads than in rush hour. That's because everybody's out shopping. In Argentina, the traffic jams are at the parks and the plazas. In the United States, at the shopping malls. So that's an interesting cultural difference. That's something I learned to appreciate and enjoy here in Argentina. That the greatest wealth is to live content with little, few possessions, material possessions, but focusing on family, friends, those relationships. That's where the real value is in life. So that was the personal side. So I'm going to quickly talk a little bit about what I understood in theory, but not in practice before Argentina. What I studied in business school, in economics, mostly, are these following points. I'll go through them quickly. I know you're already familiar with many of them. Really, until I lived these points here in Argentina, I did not truly understand them deep in my bones. So it's been wonderful to live and work overseas to be able to understand these points in practice. A 1970s managed economy. Okay, so Argentina is currently a throwback to the 1970s. When you studied Milton Friedman, Free to Choose, F.A. Hayek, Road to Serfdom, Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. Have you read that book? So we live in a country that's the antithesis of that type of free market, strong individual thinking. And being here has really taught me the value of their political and economic and personal philosophy. In a general sense, moving to an overseas country, living and working there, what are a couple of the challenges? Yes?
Trust and depends on other people.
Good, okay.
Leaving behind your stereotypes and subversing yourself in the culture that you're now in.
Excellent. Yes?
So understanding the different laws and policies and kind of how things work.
Very good. Yes?
Communication, like all people have to
Excellent. Well, speaking to that point, language is often, unless you're moving from the States to, say, Australia or the UK, even then it can be an issue. Language is certainly one of the, and communication is one of those overall generic challenges when you live and work overseas. You know, there's been a lot of research, a tremendous amount of research on what happens when you change just one key, one letter on a typewriter or computer keyboard. How much that slows down your typing rate. It's like more than 50%. So imagine what it's like to live in a foreign country where you're not a native speaker of the language there. How much that slows you down, how much of a challenge that can be in business and in your personal life. The other day I mentioned about culture and the rules of risk and how my brother and I for Thanksgiving would always go to Kansas City. And the way that we played Risk in Nashville was different than the way we played Risk with our cousins in Kansas City. And if we didn't follow our cousins' rules, we were going to lose every single time. Because we were in Kansas City, we had to follow the rules. And I see culture as a bit like that, as a game of Risk or a game of Monopoly. If you move to a foreign country and you don't follow the local rules, you're going to lose every time. And it's difficult. It's not easy to follow the foreign rules because they often put you in ethical dilemmas. They force you to develop your own personal philosophy and answer some questions you've never been asked before. That's definitely a challenge. Being specific about Argentina and the challenges here, what I like to do is look at traffic as a symbol, as an analogy, as a metaphor for culture. And this book, Traffic by Tom Vanderbilt, I recommend it to all of you, has a great quote in it. Foreign traffic, like a foreign currency or language, represents a different standard. Traffic culture can be more important than laws or infrastructure in determining the feel of a place. So I'm going to talk for the next few slides about what you see here in the traffic culture in Argentina and what that says about the culture in general in this country. And don't forget an important point. Well, I'll bring it up in just a second. So this is Buenos Aires. What do you guys say about this photo? What does this tell you? What adjectives come to mind when you see this?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a big intersection there, right down in the center of the city. Actually, it's in Palermo. An informal culture. Like David Letterman says about New Yorkers and traffic lights. Rules are rough guidelines. Letterman says traffic lights for New Yorkers are just rough guidelines. Well, that is certainly the culture here in Argentina. It's quite informal, chaotic in many ways. And rules are rough guidelines. Now, we talk about this as being a challenge. But don't forget, guys, if you're an entrepreneur, these challenges are actually opportunities. And I don't want you to think that these following slides are just criticisms and me browbeating the Argentine, because that's not what it's about. I'm not making value judgments here. I'm stating the way that I personally see it, and I'm also telling you about opportunities and explaining why the people in my book have been as successful as they are. So, here we have, when I'm out and about with my iPhone, I love to take photos. Whenever I come across something that I think will be interesting, to incorporate into a presentation and share with all of you about the culture here. This is a stoplight down the block from my apartment that is on a four-way corner, and for 3 days was stuck on red, yellow, and green. So this is a metaphor for mixed signals, which is certainly an aspect of Argentine culture in business, in love and dating, and in many other areas. This is a road sign on the way down to Tunuyán, which is about an hour south of here. This is the first road sign you come across. It's an official Argentine Federal Highway Department sign. You'll see it stamped here. Here we have the sign a little further down the road. What do you guys see strange about this next sign that's a little further down the road? Come on, you accounting and finance guys, your numbers focused. What do you see? What's weird? Huh? Right. Well, this is actually 12 kilometers later. You'd think from the sign that it's only 2. But look at that. This has gone down. This has gone up by 2. This has gone up by 2. These are official signs. Look, DMV, they're stamped. National Highway Department. So, what's the result of all this? Obviously confusion, insecurity, which in itself not only as a challenge, but as of great value, because it's forcing you to re-examine your own philosophies and beliefs about reality, government, officialdom. What is the result? What does this equal? What does this question mark equal? The more official, the more unreliable. This is a country where the more official something is, often the more unreliable it is. Yes?
Can you elaborate why that would be an opportunity?
For those who come in and fill niches where the government or the official is falling down miserably and offer a product or service. The more official, the more unreliable. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, unless things have changed in the last 10 years, but generally we have faith in our Federal Highway Department and the road signs work that we see. Here, the effect is the opposite. So, you are all familiar with this. This is on this side, this is crossing a main road here. On the left is the Peatonal, the street mall that you all were on yesterday. You cross over to go to Plaza Independencia, which is here with the fountains. After dinner last night, you guys walked through here. So this has been blocked by protesters. Okay? This is in flagrant violation of federal, state, and city law. They've set up a tent. They're here for the long haul. Not only do they have their living room furniture they brought out, but they also have a table and 5 chairs because they're having breakfast, lunch, and dinner out here in the middle of the road. This is a main thoroughfare, as you've seen with your own eyes. This is where buses for the city pick up people to take them to the suburbs. This is the main bus stop in the center of the city of Mendoza. Now, who do you think has stopped traffic? Who do you think is protesting the fact that their pensions haven't been adjusted for inflation? Any guesses? Huh? Bus drivers? Good guess. That was good, but no. Who could it possibly be? The police! The police themselves. The people we most trust to enforce the law of a nation are the ones who are most flagrantly violated. What is the result of this type of behavior? Anarchy, excellent word, as a synonym for lawlessness. That's the result. Now, when you have this type of behavior on the part of the police, what behavior does it cause in the local population? Which, again, for those of us, why am I talking about this? Because there's a challenge for those of us who come from countries with a different mentality, different attitude towards the law and towards the police, to adapt in this environment and figure out how to play by those rules of risk in Kansas City, the rules of risk of Argentina. Right? We got to figure out what they are and then play by them. Because if we don't, we're not going to be successful. Here we have another example before I get to how this is manifested in the culture in general. This is a road stop. You see these police road stops here in Argentina, typically between provinces. You also see them when you're going from one agricultural area to another because they're supposedly controlling for pests, fruit flies, and whatnot. I think you guys experienced this at the airport where they ran your bags through the x-ray machine and the guy was probably like chatting to someone and not even looking at the monitor. So that's supposedly to control to make sure you're not bringing fruit into the province of Mendoza that would have some type of pest in it. So this is very official, right? These guys stop you. If you do not have every single last piece of paper that you're supposed to have in your car, insurance, registration, you name it, with all those, typical, stamps from, like a Kafka book, you got the guy behind the desk, he's got 10 million stamps and receipts and all that stuff on your paperwork. If you don't have everything, your T's crossed, your I's dotted, these guys will pull you over and they will impound your car. All right? Now, 9 times out of 10, who is at these police stops? Who's with these guys out here along the road who are enforcing the laws, the traffic laws of the nation? Who's there? The guys selling coffee and donuts. Do you think these guys have paperwork? Are they registered with the Federal Health and Sanitation Department? Do they have any kind of license whatsoever? No! None. Zero. Nothing. So on one hand, you have the police who are supposedly enforcing the law. Not only are they blocking for days on end in the main intersection in the middle of Mendoza, but they're also only partially enforcing the law. It's a joke. So what does this instill in the people? Authority and law is viewed as arbitrary. Again, a nation of men, not a nation of law, that rather than universal and fair. So you can imagine the attitude that I've developed about rules and regulations. I sometimes shock people when I go home and I make certain terribly unpolitically correct statements about rules and regulations. Because I live in this country where rules and regulations are arbitrary. If you know the right people, you can get around them. If you've got money, you can get around them. They only apply to some people at some times. You can pay a bribe. And I want to make it clear, I'm not talking about differences of kind, I'm talking about differences of degree. We will find corruption in the United States. We will find lack of rigor in the United States. We will find police who accept bribes in the United States. All I'm saying is the degree is different. The percentage, in my personal opinion, in my experience, is much higher here in Argentina. But I'm not saying it's a difference of kind. I'm not saying in the United States we don't have these problems. We have different problems. We have some of these same problems, but to a much smaller degree. Standard questions in the United States, which are absurd in Argentina. Anybody want to give a shot at what a question, typical interview question, typical business question from back home, which is absolutely absurd in this context? Anybody want to give a shot at it? Timid. All right. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Typical interview question. Nobody asked that here. How can you possibly know? In the past 2 weeks, the unofficial exchange rate is increased by like 15%. The whole country could blow up tomorrow. Where do you see it in 5 years? I have no clue. Back home, you're considered unprofessional and an idiot if you go to somebody in a job interview where you want to be in 5 years. You never ask them, what's your 3-year strategic plan or forecast? Businesses here don't do 3-year strategic planning and forecasting. Forget about it. What's the point? You have no idea what the currency is going to be worth. You have no idea if the president's going to wake up tomorrow and put 100% tariff on whatever it is you're exporting or whatever you need to import to make your product. Have you a limited redundancy in your operations? Back home, we want efficiency. We want everything to be optimized. Here, that's the last thing in the world you want. You want to have flexibility. If things change radically tomorrow, you better be in 3 or 4 lines of business because 1 or 2 of them is going to be wiped out overnight. The more pies you have your hands in, the better. Eliminating redundancy really isn't appropriate in this context. How long will it take and how much will it cost? Who the hell knows? No idea. Back home, it's basic questions, right? In business, you want a proposal, you want to know how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost. You can't get an honest answer here because people don't know that our environment's too volatile. So here are about 10 other points that I identified. I think most of you have seen, if not read, my book, where I interviewed 10 expat entrepreneurs that live here in Mendoza and identify what are the skills that they all have in common as compared to, as contrasted with, the expats I know here who have failed. Now, I don't write about them in my book for reasons of confidentiality, but the vast majority of people who come here and fail lack most of these skills. They might have had 1 or 2 of them, but it's the combination that's really key. And I'm often asked, well, what's the single most important of these skills when it comes to living and working overseas? What really makes a difference being an expat entrepreneur? Again, talking about someone who's living long-term in a foreign country, running a business there. It's language fluency. Because language fluency is an indicator of so many other of these skills, like adaptability, flexibility, motivation, etc., etc. The people I see tucking their tails and going home after a year or 2 are almost always the ones who couldn't learn to speak the language fluently. And the people who stay are successful with those who do. This is a typical weekend where we're in the vineyard of a friend of mine. Here I am kicked back on the couch. It's common here where you'll have someone that has a vineyard, they'll clear off a section of it, plant grass, put out some couches, and every weekend they'll have an asado, and then after the asado, we'll lie out and have some fernet, some wine, some cheese. Nobody's rushing home to watch the latest episode of Mad Men. Nobody cares about the television. We're all out there for the entire day, just taking it easy, enjoying good food, good wine, and good company. And that's really a big part of the expat lifestyle here in Argentina. You know, research shows overwhelmingly that people like other people who are like them. The more you can be a chameleon, the more you can be a mirror to the people that you're living and working with, the more successful you'll be at interacting with them and doing business with them and forming relationships with them. So it's absolutely essential to be a chameleon. If you go to somebody's birthday party here in Argentina and all the pizza is ham pizza with peppers and olives on it, you better be eating the ham pizza with the peppers and the olives on it if you want to like you. You better be drinking that fernet and drinking it enthusiastically. And a tip for when you get back to your homes in Buenos Aires, as soon as you have the first bite of whatever it is they've made for you, say you love it. Because Argentines are waiting on bated breath for you to say that. The culture here is different. It's not like back home where we wait to the end of the meal and say, wow, that was great, thank you. They want you to say right away that it's great, that you love it. So just to help you out a little bit in terms of being a chameleon and fitting into the culture, as soon as your host mom makes you a pasta dish or whatever it is, take a bite and say, wow, that is great. Because I guarantee you she's waiting for you to hear that. And if she doesn't hear it within the first few bites, she's pretty convinced you don't like it. And I know you haven't intentionally done that, and probably no one gave you that cultural tip. But keep it in mind when you go back, because you're going to impress them now that you do it when you say how much you like it. So be a chameleon. Whenever you're dealing with people from other countries, other nationalities, other races, other languages, it's really important to do what they call in linguistics code switching. Do you guys know what code switching is? Any of you study linguistics, read any Steven Pinker or Language Instinct or anything like that? So code switching, African Americans do this. It means they change their dialect, their way of speaking, depending on the context. So the way an African American might speak to their African American friend on the street is different in the meeting they might speak with me. It's called code switching. There's rule-governed dialects that we all have. When I go back to Tennessee and I'm out with my friends, if I run into somebody from the countryside, I start saying y'all and a whole bunch of stuff like that. I switch the way I speak. In front of you, I speak totally differently. Again, because people like other people who are like them. It's really key to have that skill to be a chameleon. And what you have to do is, in the process of becoming an expat, is identify a country you're deeply passionate about. Passion is what drives you forward. So let me ask you, where's the best place to learn a foreign language? In the country. In bed. Oh my God, it's a joke. In bed. Why in bed? It's about passion. If you meet another person from another country, gosh, you guys are a tough audience. It's the first time nobody's ever laughed at that. Wow. It's because Amy's in the room, right? Amy, because you're here, Amy. You were in the punchline. The best place to learn a foreign language is in bed, because if you meet somebody from another country, speaks another language, doesn't speak your language, doesn't know much about your culture, you are driven, you are motivated, or are you not, to learn their language, to learn their culture. Passion. All right, we're going to get one here. And he was the first one to say in the country. Passion is what drives you forward. One type of passion or another. To be an expat, to adapt to life and work in a foreign country, it really does help to be passionate. So what's key to preparing, guys, is to finding that country, to find those people or that person that you're passionate about. Because that passion is the only thing that's going to keep you fighting, going to keep you pushing through all these challenges we've talked about. When you're having that matrix moment, when you're unplugged from your home culture. And remember in the movie The Matrix, that is a very painful, physically painful, difficult process for Neo to go through, unplugging from that matrix and facing reality. It's terribly difficult. But in part, he's pushed on by passion, because he has Trinity, somebody in the movie that he loves. And it's absolutely key. Be passionate. Find that country. So get out, travel early, travel often, go to as many countries as you possibly can, and when you find a place that you're passionate about, that's it. There you have the opportunity to become an expat. I never could have done it if I wasn't passionate about Argentina. If I didn't come to this country first and fall in love with the people, I never would have been able to adapt to living here. I never would have learned the language. And I think a lot of the people who don't make it, who come here and go back after a year or two, do so because they're just not passionate enough. They're not driven enough to learn the language and learn the culture. Not only do they have to code switch to live here, but they have to culture switch. That's absolutely key.
One of the ways to beat the competition or make it successful is to think differently and do something differently. But with that comes a fear of failure. Why am I on an island by myself and everyone's thinking this way? How do you overcome that? What helps you kind of stick to your guns and say, I'm right, and I'm gonna.
I think it's part of personality. I'm not sure that's encouraging to say. I'm not sure it's something you can easily learn. I like going out on a limb, taking big risks. Every time I've taken them, they've paid off. It doesn't scare me. And I think most of us who are entrepreneurs feel that way. We don't have a fear of failure. And in fact, there's a famous quote from the founder, I believe, of Motorola, who said to increase your success rate, increase your rate of failure. I think that's really true. You have to embrace failure to be successful in life. Because at the worst case, when you fail, you learn, and you can apply it the next time you're trying something. So failure shouldn't be feared. It should actually be embraced. It's a good thing. If you're not failing, you're not succeeding. You're not moving forward. You're stuck. It's a big world, guys, and there's some great opportunities out there to make your mark, to be different, to do something really exciting outside the United States. And that's what I'm most trying to transmit to you about this presentation, the expat experience, life work overseas, is don't dismiss the opportunity to live and work overseas. It can be a great opportunity. There's several things that drive me really crazy. You can't escape television in the United States. It's in airports, it's in bars, it's in restaurants. You can't sit down and not be distracted. It's almost impossible. And often it's television news. And the sky's falling. It's the opposite of the attitude that La Sangre Nunca Llega al Rio. The opposite of the attitude that blood never rise up the river. In the United States, like the blood is always, it's getting in the river, the blood's in the river, the shit's hitting the fan, everything's about to blow up, the terrorists are about to attack, Obamacare is about to be implemented. There's always something that everybody's terribly concerned about. And that I can't handle it. It drives me crazy. And then there's been a lot of studies. There's a great book called Nudge. I don't know if some of you read it or not, but there's a great book about the tyranny of selection, being overwhelmed by 15 varieties of almonds, 150 microbrewery beers, 32 different kinds of cheese. And I don't know if you have Kroger supermarkets in Oxford, but I find it overwhelming to walk into an American supermarket or an American Walmart. There's too much choice. It really makes me feel bad. Seriously, it depresses me to have so much choice. There's just too much. I freeze up. Because here we have one type of almond, toasted. That's it. Yes.
From like the day that you decided that you wanted to come here until you actually came here, how much preparing did you do, and what did you do?
A fair bit of preparing. I took private Spanish lessons one-on-one. If you're going to learn a language or try to learn a language before you go to a foreign country, I highly recommend you do one-on-one. Pay the extra money. Don't do classes. Because one-on-one, you get that focused attention. It forces you to improve. It's like having a personal trainer in the gym. It makes all the difference in the world to have a coach, a personal coach for learning the language. So do that. Travel, take an exploratory trip to that country. If you can, live there for 6 months without any specific goals. Just to meet people, make contacts, learn the language, then go back home, save up some money, and return. And take it in stages, take it in steps. Don't try to do it all at once. And also don't move to a foreign country thinking you can line up everything before you get there, especially Argentina. I'm always asked by people who graduated from college and whatnot, they want to move here and live here. They're always like, well, can you help me get a job? And you got to be here. You have to be on the ground, boots on the ground, to develop relationships, to find a job. And you can't be scared about going out on a limb. You have to come down here a bit, having prepared but not planned. That's kind of my personal motto in life. Prepare but not planned. Show up. Prepare yourself for those Spanish lessons. Prepare yourself for an exploratory trip. And then show up and start making things happen. It takes time, it takes dedication, and it takes passion.
You talk about being at ground zero at 9/11. Can you just kind of elaborate on what impact that had on you? I know you mentioned a little bit.
Yeah, I think, well, in some ways I can't understand or express because it's subconscious in a lot of ways. It certainly drove me towards a simpler life, further away, as far away as possible from, I suppose, threats of that nature. I mean, we've been in the world. This is a country without major conflicts, racial, ethnic, religious conflicts of that nature. To appreciate life, I mean, there's 3,000 people, that expression, no te quitan lo bailado, they can't take away that which you danced. 3,000 people who died around me that day never again are going to dance. So I think it pushed me towards more of a live for the moment lifestyle, and admittedly more Epicurean, more hedonistic, to be blunt, live for the moment. I think anybody who goes through an experience like that, most people, not anybody, most people probably feel something similar. Live for the moment. Enjoy life. It's short, and whatever you're planning, guarantee you tomorrow can evaporate like that. It changes your perspective. On that note, thanks to all of you. If you have any further questions, just come up to me one-on-one.